New data from the National Association of Realtors just confirmed pending home sales in Southwest Florida have plummeted to their lowest point in 30 years, even lower than during the 2008 market crash. Buyer demand has collapsed, interest rates are choking affordability, prices are still at record highs, and sellers are clinging to outdated expectations. Everyone's waiting for rate cuts, but will be too little or too late. Stick around and we're going to break down why patience is rewarding buyers currently, where the bottom could possibly end up, and what to expect in the second half of 2025. Guys, my name is Ed Zoller. Been a real estate agent here in Southwest Florida full-time, going on 25 years. Sold over $250 million worth of, or actually $30 billion worth of real estate. And I have been doing these market updates routinely. You can go to LeeCountyMarketUpdate.com and you can go see every single video I've done monthly that goes over what this is. This is the end of August real estate market update. So let's got a lot of data to go through. Let's get to it. We're going to first talk about supply. So supply did go down 6%. You can see here on the graph, quite a steep decline. That is 5 consecutive drops. But if you count these consecutive drops on every single peak, which is the same peak we had up here, this has been 6 consecutive drops until it bottomed out and started going back up. You can see it happen here in 17. You can happen here in 18. Then when COVID happened, it kind of fizzled. It was as it was going up. This doesn't count. This is what made all the prices get outrageous. And then the reason it started really escalating is interest rates got in the way and made things unaffordable. Then you can see here we hit some of the highest peaks we've ever seen, over 14,000 homes for sale, and now we're currently above 10,000 items for sale in Southwest Florida. It's still 16% higher than any other August that we've ever had. But what I am thinking is, if history does repeat itself, which it does, we're going to have another month of drop here, and it's probably going to get down to that 10,000 mark or so, maybe a little bit under. If it does go down another 6%, and then we'll start rising back up as it did in next month. So not in this month, September, but October, it tends to go back up again until it peaks out right around our season, which is January, February, March time, and then it starts going back down again, just as it does every single year, except for COVID. Of the inventory, 65% were single-family homes. Condos represented 21%. The rest are townhomes and villas. And of this inventory, 1,985 of this inventory are new constructions. That is a 6% drop from last month, which is positive, because the reason we've been struggling and the reason our market has had all these previous bad news is because builders have been dropping the market fast and furious because they want the sales. They built too many homes, as we're going to talk about in the future slides. But that's positive. If they're running out of inventory, then they will stop crashing this market. Will that stop it? No, because now that the builders have done what they've done, the used market is now so out of whack. They're too high compared to what builders are right now. So this could be a positive trend. This could be something we've been looking for, that builders are running out of inventory, and a 6% drop of that is good. But I did look into that, and this is going on the next graph. Where did our 600 plus total inventory disappear, and where did 350 new constructions disappear to? They didn't sell. They were terminated, expired, withdrawn from the market. And just, if you haven't watched my previous videos where I go over this, withdrawn means they've given up, they just pulled themselves from the market, but the agent still kind of has a chokehold on it because they have a contract that expires on a certain date. The expired is that agent hit that date, and they no longer have that house for sale, and they pull themselves from the market. And terminated just means the seller said, I'm terminating my listing, I do not want you to have it anymore. Doesn't mean it doesn't come back on later, but it does mean they terminate the listing and the contract that the agent has. 2,046 homes disappeared. That's not how we want our inventory to go down. We want buyers buying homes. But when 2,000 come off, but we only lost 600 total, which means that 1,400 more homes came back on the market. But I thought was interesting about all this is that 350 of them were new constructions. And look at this. Only 10 of those 350 were national builders. These mom and pop builders, we call it, the investors who bought land and thought, build it and they will come. We're going to join this FOMO buyer frenzy of all these buyers just buying it. I'll build it, they'll buy it, no problem. Well, there's a big problem. They're not national builders. They can't float that check. And so I'm seeing a lot of these mom and pop builders or these investors who bought land and just subcontract out to any builder. They are starting to lose money, too much money, and now some of those are going into foreclosure. We're going to get to that probably as the months go by. Don't want to really talk about the foreclosures just yet, but it is something that does look like on the horizon might happen with some of these new constructions from these mom and pop builders. So I thought that was interesting. The demand still down. Sales went down 2%. So that's better than 6% like last month, better than what we've been doing. It kind of flattened out, as you can see here on this graph. Now, I've pinpointed on this since 2020, the peaks of demand, which is sold properties, year by year by year by year. And you'll notice that the peaks are all on the exact same month. And as you can see here, this is a downward trend. So I drew this kind of trend line. And then on the bottom, these are the lows. And as you can see, we have lower lows, lower lows, lower lows, lower lows. And since this year, 2025, this was a 40-year low. And every month after that has been a 40-year low, including August. So this was the worst August we've ever had in 40 years, but not by much. This was only 10 homes off of here. Look where August ended up here. I put a little purple on the end of August. You can see that we're just slightly below that. So is that a sign that we're stabilizing a little bit? Well, as you can see here, when we've ever hit this month, it goes up, it went down here, it went up here, it went down here, it went up here, it went down here, and now we're kind of flat. So what's it going to do next month? I don't care what happens next month, because as you can see, even though this went up, it still went down. And from here, it still went down. This peak here, when it went up, hovered up there for a few months and still went down to our lowest month of the year, which is January, as well as here, went up, then down, and up and down. But either way, still went down. And then this probably still going to be down, but maybe it's going to be higher. Maybe this might be the first higher low that we've seen. That will kind of indicate a turnaround for the future. Might be a couple years, but definitely not weeks or months or anything like that. But we have to break this trend of 40-year lows month over month over month, and to see what happens next month could be interesting with some of the data that I saw here. But at the time of writing this, interest rates were 6.52%, which was much lower than the 6.81 when I wrote that at the end of last month. So even with the Fed rate not dropping anything, 30 basis points just disappeared. That makes things more affordable, which is a positive trend. Of the 991 sales, 320 of were new construction, so we're still a third of our sales is only really 16% of our inventory, which still tells me builders are driving the market. Our median home price really didn't do anything. It stayed the same. It's exactly the same. Something I did of note, though, a lot of people have liked when I've gone over the most expensive homes sold in the county, and it's always been in Bonita Beach or on the Gulf of Mexico or Fort Myers Beach. This time, Cape Coral. A house on Cape Coral was the most expensive home sold. It was on the river, sold for $3 million. So applause to Cape Coral for actually being one of the most expensive homes for at least the month of August. But only 55 sales over $1 million is half of what we had 2 months ago. So even the high-end stuff is kind of seeing a big slowdown. 320 of those sales were new construction. We talked about that, the third of the sales. But here's what I like to pinpoint on this graph. We know this was the housing crisis crash of 05, 06, 07. And as you can see here, I drew this little orange graph here. And what this orange graph takes in consideration is what people can afford. This graph is really what happens to income. Do people make more money now than they did in 2000? Yeah, as far as Census Bureau data goes. So we kind of add up everything to say this is what people can afford, and this is what housing prices should be with the current situation we're in. And as you can see here, we way went over that track during the last crash. We crashed, which is going under that line. Then once we got back on track about 2016, 17, for 5 years, perfect. You made average wage, you bought the average home in the average location, average size, average everything. But then COVID happened, and in 2021, we escalated. The interest rates started doubling. the prices were still going up, and we got super unaffordable, making yet another bubble. And so where do I see this going? I see this graph going down to this line. As long as income keeps going up and everything's going great in Lee County, then I kind of see the market getting around the average home price being $265, which is about a 30-40% drop in price to get down to that level. It needs to come down about 180 grand. But let's think of that number when I get to the next slides. So when I talk about affordability, where I made that orange graph, what is affordable? Well, this is a map out of what's happened if I take in consideration the average household income and what the payments were of houses during each month to say what percentage of that household income went towards a mortgage or rent. Well, this is really for mortgages. So as you can see here, when we had that bubble, 52.16% of your gross income going to a mortgage, that's not affordable or sustainable. And what happened? We crashed. We went down to the bottom and we kind of got into this target zone, this beautiful target zone that I think is reality. Did we go under that box? Yeah. You know why? Because a lot of homes were really cheap because of Chinese drywall and foreclosures, and the houses really weren't habitable. Those houses, and our average home price being that low, made houses super affordable, sure. Some of them weren't even financeable, though. So not to the everyday person could you get a home way under this box, but then it kind of went back into the box again and stayed there from 2014 all the way to 2018, when the feds tried popping that interest rate up from 3.5 to 4.5. That didn't work out too well. They immediately dropped back down, back into the box, and actually at one point when our interest rates went to 2.5, we went under that box where everyone can buy a home. Then we got back in the box, and then what happened? About end of 2021, skyrocket interest rates, and we became unaffordable really fast. Our prices continue to hover. They continue to go up even though we were not sustainable. So I want to watch this graph get down to this 28% long-term average, but in my opinion, this is where it's going to go in this blue box, which is right around that 21 to 23% of your gross income going to a mortgage. That's where it needs to go. But let's take these numbers and say, okay, the average household income, $74,919. Let's multiply by that 28% line right there. What is that per month? $1,748. Let's say that's affordable. That's our target price. That's where buyers are going to start buying again. That's when our market turns around. Well, currently right now with our price and the average interest rate of 6.5, we're at $25.45. We are 45% overvalued. So what needs to happen? Well, I've done the math on this one. I came out with, and I love doing math, so you don't have to. Follow along with me here. If the interest rates at 6.5 stay here, currently our mortgage rate is $25.45 per month for that average home. What needs to happen to get down to that $1,740, or what I put in here, this green $1,700 with the black box around it? This is kind of a matrix to say this is affordable. Anything under this is super affordable. Anything being the blue line is cutting it close, but kind of. The orange line's kind of better be an above average home, maybe a home with a pool or something like that. And then, of course, the red being not affordable for the average person. What needs to happen? Well, if the feds do the 50 basis point proposal cut, well, what has to happen for our market to become affordable? I don't know, another 35% down in price? That's one way it can become affordable again, to get back down to $1,700. Well, what if they drop 100 basis points? Well, then we only drop 30%. Do you see how the interest rate really doesn't play that big of a role in that mortgage payment of that house? What if they went all the way down to 350 basis points and we got back down to 3% interest rate? Well, then we only come down 10% from where we are. So no matter what happens, no matter what rate cut they come down to, our prices are going to go down. That's really what, just surveying people out there and talking to people, it's not the interest rates that worry them. It's the monthly payment and the affordability. It's really the price. Everyone's talking about the prices are too high, and I agree with them. The prices are too high, but I say the monthly payment is too high, that the average person can't even afford a home. 38%, 36% of their gross income, that's not affordable. This green line here is. So if you want to go ahead and pause this and kind of see it, where do you see rates going in the future? I personally think in the next year or two, feds will come back down to 5%, which means our prices between now and 2 years from now will probably only come down 25% more, and then we can be in that $1,700 range where things are affordable again. So I thought that was interesting. So you can look at this matrix to say what needs to happen, and that really is the big wild card: is where are interest rates going to go? But do you really think the Feds are going to drop 350 basis points on interest rates to save our market? That's really what they need to do. But even if they did that, we still have to come down 10%, down 30 or 40 grand off our prices. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. The market stabilization graph, this is really the Home Zillow Value Index. And if someone said, are you stable? I say, are we at that line? This line where you see the little green above it and the green below it, when this hit this line in 2012, by the way, we were stable. And we stayed stable all the way until COVID. And then what happened? We became unstable, really, really chaotic. Home values were going up 3% a month or more. Actually, this little double peak here, that horns pattern, as opposed to this up here where it just kind of hit a peak and then kind of plummeted right back down again, when then we went to negative 3% a month. Well, look what's happening right now. We are getting further and further and further away. This month, 1.28% negative. Last month was 1.27%, 1.22. These numbers are not getting back to zero. They're getting further away from it. So are we stable? No. Are we affordable? No. Very easily answered by just looking at the data and the graphs. So we have an affordability problem. That's our biggest problem here in our market. And there's ways of correcting that the builders have been doing. So let's just compare month to month. September 1st, we had a 6% drop in inventory. That's good news. Of course, we also realized that 2,000 of those homes disappeared by just withdrawing from the market, not selling. The homes sold went down, but only 2%, not 6% or 7% like we're used to seeing. But this has kind of happened in August previously, in previous years. What I really found interesting, a good positive note, is that pending sales went up 2%. That is not a big number, guys. We're talking, this is still, if I look at, that's the second worst pendings we've had this whole year. But it did go up, which is kind of a sign, maybe a signal that things are reversing a little bit, that buyers are seeing some advantage to entering into the market than the previous month. Obviously, the 10% drop in new constructions is great, but we know 350 of them might be going into foreclosure, but that's good. Get the fluff off the market, and let's just get down to a normal market. Average time on market, really asking price and median selling price all stayed about the same, but then the percent of asking price to sold went up drastically, which means that sellers are getting 97% of their asking price on the average. And what I say is that's because to sell a used home in this market, with these builders offering these crazy incentives, you have to be priced according to the market. So people are kind of coming down and dropping chaotically, and then they're getting an offer when people say, okay, that's dropped enough for me and I want to buy it. You tend to get a little more towards your asking price because you're dropping so much off that. The new news is that the National Association of Realtors did come out with the U.S. Pending Home Sales Index. I have graphed this before in previous market updates. I stopped doing it. I'm going back to it because they just came out with the new data. We have had the lowest number of contract signings going back 30 years. And here's your 30 years here. What I saw on this PHSI graph is what it's called, is the downward grade from the last crash down to where we are now. And you can see that blip when we went into crisis lockdown mode, when no one really bought anything because no one left their house. It kind of shot right back up again. And now here we are hovering into the lowest numbers we have seen in a long, long time. This PHSI is a leading indicator for future home sales. So if you say, hey, what's the future like? These pending sales went up at 2%. Hey, what do you think the next couple months are going to be? I look at this and say, not good. Probably in that downward trend still. So I talked about deals, and a lot of you have commented on those deals and wanted to see more of them, of what I'm currently doing with my current buyers right now. They watch these updates. They see that the market's doing what it's doing. So why would anyone think of buying? Well, I talked about this last month. We stroked a deal with Pulte. I had buyers who wanted a townhome. They wanted to be in an area, and we were looking at sales of $330,000 for a 1,900 square foot townhome. Now, this townhome was built in 2006, though, 20 years old almost. And they were thinking of getting it. We end up waiting, looking at the brand new ones when Pulte had their mega sale, and they dropped their houses, their townhomes from 270, 280 down to 249, then took another $2,500 off of that to 247, and then gave us an interest rate that doesn't exist. It cost the builder, I believe, 7 basis points, so that's 7%. Talk about $15,000 to $20,000 worth of interest rate buy downs to get into the fours. When I did the math comparing this person who just closed on May 7th, this townhome, a 20-year-old townhome, and this townhome brand new, same area, right next door to each other almost, that my buyers got $24,000 less down and $654 less per month they paid. To even get this used, this is how far out of whack used homes are. To get him down to $1,586 a month with 20% down, he'd have to drop 28%. This is what I feel our market is overvalued, around 30%. So did my buyers wait till 30% crash happened? No, they just made their monthly payment like it already happened by pretty much taking all the incentives from the builder. Let's go to a couple other ones I did just recently. So this one just closed at the end of this month here. And I'm going to call this the Octavio deal. We were in Lehigh. His story is great. We went out to a builder. We found a product he liked. He knew a location. He finally knew exactly what he wanted. A builder had a product. But when we were cutting down to negotiation, we came out with the best the builder could do at the time was like $1,890 a month. He told me, Ed, I want to be $1,800. He always had that vision. He had the patience for it. He goes, if it's the perfect house, I'll go up to $1,850, but not a dime more. And they came up with $1,890. He said, what should I do? It's $40. I'm like, you know what though? Monthly payments don't go down. They tend to go up. So if $1,850 is pushing it, $1,890 is pushing it even further. And what happens when that goes to $1,925? What's life like? Do you have to have a raise? You're going to have to work more hours now because you want to afford a home? That's not the way buyers should think right now. Should not be their mentality. And we waited. 1 month is all it took. Then a builder popped up. And they offered us 4.875, all the closing costs paid, and only with 3.5% down. He put down $9,000. That's it of his money, and he got a mortgage payment not of $1,850, not of $1,800, $1,729 a month. Instead of, if this was a used market house, it'd be $2,000 a month. That was a deal we just did. Then we went under contract this month as well. At the end of the month, on the 26th of this month, there's another builder who stepped up. I had a particular buyer. He wanted to be under $2,000 a month. He wanted to get a bigger home. He wanted a home that he could grow into. He wanted to be under $2,000 a month. That was the goal. That's what we set up, and we were patient, and we waited. Every house that we're looking at that's under $2,000 a month, too small. Not enough bedrooms. Nothing going for it. Also, not the location he wanted. One builder stepped up and said, well, we have a home, but it's going to be like $2,100 a month, and my buyer actually was thinking and contemplating increasing that budget he set himself. And I said, let's not do it. Let's just be patient and wait. And then wouldn't you know it, same builder that Octavio got, they stepped up. We got that payment to $1,915 a month by having that builder give a 4.875% interest rate, again costing them around 10 points, 10 grand off the price, and also a move-in package. They only had to come out of pocket $11,000. That was their down payment, by the way. 3.5%, $11,000 down, $1,915 a month. And they got a brand new 3+ den, which is actually a 4th bedroom, brand new home in the area they wanted. And then this one just happened right before I shot this. Burnt Store Village is a place in Punta Gorda that's just north of Cape Coral. We're talking maybe 5-10 minutes north of the borderline of Cape Coral and Punta Gorda. It's called Burnt Store Village. They wanted. I've had her on my board for about a year now, well, maybe about 8 months, and she had a monthly payment in mind, $1,700. That's all she wanted. And of course, at the time I met with her, it didn't exist. Not even the builders with their incentives did exist. Until we just waited. Last month I called her and said, it's starting to get close. I'm starting to see 18s. I'm starting to see 17s in Lehigh. But you want Cape, you want close to Cape, and you want something that you can build for the future. Well, then we just waited until toward the end of the month, a builder stepped up and said, all right, I showed her the home. She loved it. The funny thing about this home, this wasn't even for sale. Once we identified the home, I said, listen, is this one canceling? Is there a chance this financing falls apart? This person that bid on this home, could it happen? It's called a cancellation, short for. And the builder said, as a matter of fact, I got this address. This is going to be a can in the next 3 days, but I'll know about it first. Then we'll put it on the MLS. Then you'll see it on Zillow, all that stuff. We don't even have to go through that. Let's look at the home. She loved it. I'm like, the only problem with that is, what if this lady found a way to make the financing work? Then she couldn't get the home. But at the end of the day, she didn't. It fell apart. We purchased it before it ever hit the MLS as an active thing, and they stroked us a deal, and I negotiated $299,925. I negotiated an interest rate of 3.875. This builder I gave a D- to last month when I was rating all the builders, and that was because that was their timing. They did not care about really selling homes at that point. They care now when they drop down 3.875, which cost the builder 11% of their profit. That's 11% of the home price of profit, pure profit, to buy it down to that interest rate. And they gave us $15,000 in closing costs, which pays for all of it. And they added a move-in package, which the house normally isn't, and not normally given, where they include all the appliances. And that got the payment down to $1,707. So I got her $1,700 monthly payment. And did I think she was going to get a 4-bedroom, 1,800 square foot home in a great area that's minutes from her where she works? And then I broke this down in my head. Wait a minute. I made that builder cut 11% of the home price in profit. This is called their margin. Closing costs cost them 5%. The move-in package cost the builder 1.5% of margin. That's a 17.5% of profit gone. And then they paid me their 3% as well for bringing the buyer, which is 20% of that builder's profit margin. When a builder builds a home, they want to make a profit margin. It's usually around 18 to 24%. They just ate all their profit to just make this house go away because it was a cancellation. So they made my buyer's dream a reality. And did patience win out? Yeah, 9 months of patience paid out because I couldn't get anything near this. I couldn't even get a 1,200 square foot home in Lehigh at $1,700 a month. But I did now. And that's something that I'm striving with buyers with the mentality of patience. You come up with your monthly payment you don't want it to exceed. And I'm not talking 3.875 adjustables. This is fixed, 30-year fixed. That's what they're trying to do now, is these adjustable rate mortgages. I'd rather just get it 30-year fix, and if it costs the builder 11% of their profit, so be it. So in overview, end of August, we saw a decrease of inventory. 2,000 homes plus pulled off the market. That's a 4th straight month. We have pending sales that increased a little bit. I'm interested about that data point. Median home sale the same. The affordability got a lot better, but it's still over 36%, which just means that we're not affordable, and stability worsened. So we're not affordable and we're not stable. New construction still runs the show for you sellers out there. Builders are dropping and coming up with these incentives and paying these outrageous fees, $50,000, $80,000 worth of incentives. And some of my clients this year, $250,000 of incentives on these homes just to move the product because they know they built too much. They still have a record amount of inventory. If you watched last month's video, I talked all about the builders. Record amount of inventory in the South, more than they had in 2008. They have 9.8 months of standing inventory in the country right now. They have way too many homes, so they have to do these big discounts. But when we talk about a crash, we do not talk about the builders driving it, starting it off. We're halfway through this bust right now. But what happens and what makes headlines is when the sellers and the used market plays catch up. If I can get a new home, like a 28% drop in price, and then the used market, guess where they're going? A 28% drop in price. When that all happens simultaneously, that's when it makes the news. That's when you say, oh, we just crashed. But we're doing it. We've been doing it. But I also have no sign that the builders are going to reverse this trend. They're still offering up these crazy incentives because they're still not moving product like they'd like to. So my advice for buyers is the patience to infinity, and then just pick your payment and wait. Ed, I mean, when I put on the board Taylor $1,700 a month, I did not think this year I was going to achieve that target. I'm a patient person, and she was patient, waiting for the right opportunity. And when I had Octavio, and when I had Austin, and when I had Hayden on my board of a certain monthly payment, again, at the time, I'm never thinking I'm going to find that home for him. But you know what? Patience has won out every single time. That board that I have people wishing for a certain monthly payment, fixed monthly payment, is getting smaller and smaller because when a builder calls and says, what do you got? We need to move this product. I'm offering $100,000, Ed. Not to me, but to the buyer. I'm going to have a buyer for that, hopefully. So we have still 10,000 homes for sale. Builders have way too much inventory in the book still that they have to get rid of. And if you truly believe, like I do, that home values are going to go down based on that interest rate graph, 17, 28, 30, you pick the number. Where do you think interest rates are going to go? We can follow that on that chart and say we're going to go down 25%. What if we get that monthly payment like it already happened by having a builder fork up $100,000? Then you can get your house. And then kind of like that win-win. You don't have to wait for the feds to drop interest rates and for that to trickle down to mortgage rates. You don't have to wait for housing prices to come down. As a matter of right now, you can get a brand new home 30% off a used home. Have you ever bought a new car 30% less than the same car used? No, it makes no sense, right? Scratch your head with it. So that's my advice for buyers. And sellers, do you still have fake equity from COVID? Sure. Should your house have ever hit that price that you saw in 2022, 2023? No. And now it's correcting. But understand, you have to price yourself according to the market. These market updates aren't just for buyers. They're for sellers to say that, you know what, our prices came down 4%. So you need to drop your price 5%. If the builders are offering interest rates, you need to offer interest rates. If they're offering closing costs, you need to offer closing costs. Unless you have something that's much better than a new home, like you have a pool or you have added features that a builder's not giving on their houses, you are in competition with them, even if you don't think you are. Because you should be under their price, not above their price. So there's still, in my opinion, my sellers who are selling their houses are still selling. And believe me, the ones that just sold this month or in August, end of August, he's thankful he sold because now his house is worth less. So if you're thinking of selling, one, you have to wait for the market to do its catch up and then bottom, and then the builders to kind of get off the throttle, and then the used market can start building back up. But there's a ceiling. It's always going to be the new construction. You can't be worth more than new construction unless you have a different type of product that doesn't exist. So, and then also I'll put on that last bullet point. If you feel you're upside down, you bought in 2021. If you bought after COVID, then you're probably upside down. And if you don't feel like you can withstand this house anymore and the insurance is going up or the tax bill and all that good stuff, well, there is a way to get out from under it without having to stroke a check or come up with a dime. And you can call me with that at any time. Obviously, all my data sources are here. Investing.com was that latest one. Came from National Association of Realtors. You got Zillow, Bureau of Labor Statistics. You guys can source my data, where I come up with my data. It's all out there for everyone to see. And of course, if you have any questions, give me a call. Put in comments. What do you think the interest rates are going to go down to? What do you think this housing market's going to do? I'd be really curious on what your thoughts are, and if you guys still like watching the current deals I'm getting right now, or what part of my market update you really enjoy. If you're a buyer, I do still use my Teachers Can Buy Home site to qualify, to get yourself qualified. Add yourself to my board. Let's get you qualified first. Let's do this the right way. Get you ready. Come up with a plan, and that plan we may not execute for a year or two or three. But if you're thinking of buying a home in the next 2 to 3 years, it never hurts to meet with me. That's my number right down there. It's my direct cell phone. You got my email address. You can go on Lee County Market Update to look at any of these updates. And I hope all of you feel free. You can reach out to me anytime. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.